chosen one? Are you exhausted from a battle you can't even see? Are you fighting an enemy that has no face, no name, but somehow knows exactly where to hit you? Have you been wondering why everything that used to bring you joy now feels empty? Listen to me very carefully. What I'm about to tell you will shatter the comfortable lie you've been living. You think you're just going through a rough patch. You think you're just getting older, more tired, more disconnected. But here's the shocking truth that will change everything. You've been walking through a battlefield disguised as normal life. Right now, at this very moment, there is an invisible war raging over your destiny. The enemy has been systematically dismantling your hope, one dream at a time, one relationship at a time, one prayer at a time. And the most diabolical part? He's convinced you it's all natural. You feel tired, but not from age. You feel drained, but not from routine. You feel disconnected from people you once loved, numb to things that once moved you. Your dreams have stalled. Your prayers feel like they hit the ceiling. Relationships that once brought life now bring tension. What if I told you that none of this is coincidence? What if every setback, every delay, every disappointment has been a calculated strike against your calling? The Apostle Paul warned us in Ephesians 6:12, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world." This isn't poetry. This is your reality. But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. The very fact that you're under attack means you're a threat to hell itself. They don't waste ammunition on nobodies. You're here, listening to this message, because your spirit is waking up. Something inside you is stirring. Something is saying, "This isn't how my story ends." Before we go deeper into this revelation, I want to thank every single one of you who has supported this message through Super Thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here, your support, your time, your attention. It all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and sow that seed of faith. If your spirit has been sensing this warfare, if something has been off lately, if you feel like you're fighting battles you can't name, drop a 99-inch the comments right now. Let heaven and hell know you are not asleep anymore, because what comes next will expose the enemy's strategy and God's plan to pull you out. Why do you feel different from everyone around you? Why does your soul carry a weight that others seem to never understand? Why have you always sensed there's something more to your story than what meets the eye? Dear one, what I'm about to reveal will forever change how you see yourself and your journey. You've been living with a divine secret written into your very DNA, and today that secret gets exposed. You are not random. You are not an accident. You are not just another face in the crowd going through ordinary struggles. You are a divine instrument hidden in plain sight. And every single thing that has happened to you, every heartbreak, every closed door, every moment when you felt invisible, was God preparing you for this exact moment of awakening. Listen carefully. God doesn't mark the crowd. He marks the one, you. Before you were even born, before your first breath, before your parents even knew your name, God had already set you apart. The prophet Jeremiah heard these words, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." This isn't just beautiful poetry. This is your spiritual birth certificate. This is heaven's declaration over your life. But here's what the enemy has been desperately trying to hide from you. Every disappointment wasn't a detour, it was preparation. Every abandonment wasn't rejection, it was protection. Every delay wasn't God forgetting you, it was God positioning you. Think about Joseph. Betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, thrown into prison. For 13 years, it looked like God had forgotten him. 13 years of wondering, am I really chosen, or was I just dreaming? But every pit, every prison, every painful moment was God preparing him to save nations. The very brothers who threw him away would one day bow before him, not knowing they were bowing before the one they tried to destroy. Consider Moses. Abandoned as a baby, raised in the enemy's house, became a murderer, fled to the wilderness for 40 years, thinking his purpose was dead. 80 years old when God finally called him. 80. Can you imagine feeling like you missed your moment for 8 decades? But every year in that wilderness was God stripping away everything that wasn't needed, preparing him to lead 2 million people out of bondage. Look at David, the forgotten son. While his brothers were invited to the feast, David was left in the fields with the sheep. When the prophet Samuel came looking for the next king, David's own father didn't even think to call him. But God said, "That's the one." The one they overlooked, the one they forgot. He's the one I've chosen. Do you see the pattern? God specializes in the overlooked, the forgotten, the ones who've been through the fire. Isaiah 49:2 says, "He made my mouth like a sharpened sword. In the shadow of his hand he hid me. He made me into a polished arrow and concealed me in his quiver." You've been hidden. You've been concealed. Not because you're worthless, but because you're precious. Not because you're forgotten, but because you're being polished. Every rejection has been God's protection. Every closed door has been God saying, "Not yet. You're not ready for what I have planned." But something is shifting right now. Can you feel it? That restlessness in your spirit, that sense that time is running out, that feeling like you're standing on the edge of something monumental. That's not anxiety, that's anticipation. That's your spirit, recognizing that your season of hiddenness is ending. The very struggles that made you question your worth have been forging your strength. The loneliness that felt like punishment has been creating your intimacy with God. The battles that almost broke you have been building your authority. You've been in God's secret training ground, and graduation day is here. Think about every time you felt different, misunderstood, like you didn't quite fit. That wasn't a flaw, that was a feature. You weren't made to blend in with the crowd because you weren't made for the crowd. You were made to lead it, to change it, to shift it. Every tear you've cried in secret, God has collected in a bottle. Every prayer you've whispered in desperation, heaven has recorded. Every moment you've felt invisible, the throne room has been watching, waiting, preparing for your moment of emergence. The enemy has worked overtime to convince you that you're ordinary, that your dreams are too big, that your calling is just imagination. He's whispered lies about your age, your education, your past mistakes, your current circumstances. But here's what he doesn't want you to know. The very fact that he's been fighting you so hard proves how powerful you really are. You don't attack what isn't a threat. Hell doesn't waste ammunition on nobodies. The intensity of your battles has been proportional to the magnitude of your calling. The harder the fight, the bigger the destiny. Right now, at this very moment, God is saying, enough hiding, enough preparation, enough waiting in the wings. It's time. The curtain is about to rise on the most important act of your life, and you are the star. Every spiritual attack you've endured has been the enemy's desperate attempt to stop what's about to happen. But he's too late. The marking is already complete. The preparation is already finished. The anointing is already in place. You are not just chosen, you are equipped. You are not just called, you are commissioned. You are not just surviving, you are about to thrive in ways that will astound even you. Type in the comments, "I am chosen, and I know it now." Because today, we're no longer living like we're common. Today, we step into the truth of who we really are. But knowing you're chosen is just the beginning. Because with great calling comes great warfare, and what I'm about to show you next will expose exactly how the enemy plans to stop your emergence and how God's strategy will utterly destroy those plans. You thought it was about the money, you thought it was about the relationship, you thought it was about your health breaking down or your children walking away. But what if I told you that everything you've been calling bad luck or just life happening has been a coordinated assault on something far more precious than anything you could lose? Dear chosen one, The enemy didn't come for your bank account, he came for your belief. He didn't attack your marriage, he attacked your mission. He didn't target your body, he targeted your breakthrough. Let me ask you something that's going to shake you to your core. When did you stop believing you were chosen for something great? When did you start accepting that mediocrity was your portion? When did the fire in your belly turn into resignation in your spirit? The devil is far more sophisticated than we give him credit for. He doesn't just want to destroy you, he wants to neutralize you. And the most effective way to neutralize a chosen vessel is not to break them completely, but to convince them that their pain is meaningless, their struggles are random, and their calling is just a fantasy. Think about Job for a moment. The enemy didn't attack Job because he was a sinner. He attacked Job because he was righteous. Satan literally had to ask God's permission to touch him. Why? Because Job's life was a threat to the kingdom of darkness. Your pain, your persecution, your problems, they're not evidence of God's abandonment. They're evidence of your assignment. But here's where it gets diabolical. The enemy has convinced you that the attack is the message. He's made you believe that your suffering means you're doing something wrong, when the truth is, your suffering means you're doing something right. Every prophet faced opposition. Every patriarch faced persecution. Every chosen vessel faced chaos. Moses had Pharaoh. David had Saul. Jesus had the Pharisees. Paul had the Romans. And you? You have circumstances that seem designed to break your spirit and steal your hope. This wasn't punishment, it was positioning. Let me paint a picture for you. You've been financially struggling, and you think it's because you're not smart enough, not working hard enough, not blessed enough. But what if that financial pressure was designed to push you into your purpose? What if God allowed the comfortable job to disappear so you'd finally step into the calling you've been avoiding? You've watched relationships crumble, and you've blamed yourself, blamed them, blamed timing. But what if those relationships had to end because they were anchoring you to a version of yourself that God was trying to evolve? What if the people who walked away weren't rejecting you, they were making room for the connections that will fuel your destiny? This wasn't punishment, it was positioning. You've battled sickness, depression, anxiety, and you've wondered if God forgot about you. But what if that valley of shadows was actually preparing you to guide others through their darkness? What if your healing story is going to be someone else's hope story? What if your testimony of triumph is locked inside your current trial? Isaiah 54:17 tells us, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper." Not some weapons, not most weapons, no weapon. That means every attack that's come against you was destined to fail from the beginning. But here's the kicker, it also means that if weapons are being formed against you, you must be worth targeting. The enemy doesn't waste time on people who aren't going to make a difference. He doesn't invest energy in attacking people who don't pose a threat to his kingdom. The very fact that you've been under assault is proof that hell is nervous about your potential. This wasn't punishment, it was positioning. Think about David in that cave, running from Saul. He could have looked at his circumstances and said, "God must not love me. I'm anointed to be king, but I'm living like a fugitive." But that cave wasn't his curse, it was his classroom. Those years of running weren't wasted years, they were warrior training. God was developing his military strategy, his leadership skills, his dependence on divine guidance. Your cave season, your running season, your hiding season, it wasn't God punishing you, it was God preparing you. The attack behind the attack is this. The enemy wants to convince you that your pain disqualifies you when God is using your pain to qualify you. He wants you to believe that your struggles make you a victim when God is using your struggles to make you a victor. He wants you to see your scars as evidence of defeat when God sees your scars as evidence of survival. This wasn't punishment, it was positioning. Every closed door was protecting you from a detour. Every betrayal was revealing character you needed to see. Every financial setback was setting you up for a financial comeback that will fund your ministry, your mission, your mandate. Right now, as I'm speaking these words, I can sense the Holy Spirit beginning to lift the veil off your understanding. You're starting to see the chess game that's been playing out in your life. You're beginning to understand that what felt like random chaos was actually strategic positioning. The enemy thought he was destroying you, but God was developing you. The devil thought he was derailing you, but God was refining you. Hell thought it was defeating you, but heaven was defining you. This wasn't punishment, it was positioning. You are not a victim of circumstance. You are a vessel of purpose, and every attack you've survived has only made you more qualified for the assignment that's coming. The enemy's biggest mistake was thinking that pressure would break you, when God designed pressure to shape diamonds. If you're finally seeing it, if you're realizing the real fight wasn't what you thought it was, if you understand that your pain had a purpose and your struggle had a strategy type, I see the war now in the comments. Because once you see the war, you can finally position yourself to win it. You know what's happening to you right now, don't you? That strange emptiness, that feeling like you're watching your own life through frosted glass. You wake up every morning and it feels like you're moving through thick honey. Everything that used to excite you now feels distant, muted, like someone turned down the volume on your soul. And the most terrifying part? You can't explain it to anyone. How do you tell your family that you feel like a ghost in your own body? How do you explain to your friends that the person they knew seems to have just vanished? Listen to me, beloved. What you're experiencing isn't depression. It's not age catching up with you. It's not your mind failing you. What's happening to you right now is the most profound act of divine mercy you could ever imagine. You are in heaven's quarantine. God has wrapped you in a spiritual cocoon, not to punish you, but to protect you from a storm so violent that if you were operating at full emotional capacity right now, it would destroy you. He has muted your feelings because there are warfare prayers being launched against your bloodline that would shatter your spirit if you felt them at full intensity. You thought you were being abandoned, but you were being shielded. Think about it. When did this numbness begin? Was it right before a major transition in your life? Right before doors started closing that you thought should stay open? Right before relationships began shifting in ways you couldn't control? That wasn't coincidence. That was divine intervention. The prophet Isaiah tells us in chapter 26, verse 20, "Come, my people, enter your chambers and shut your doors behind you. Hide yourselves for a little while until his wrath has passed by." God is literally hiding you until the danger passes. But here's what breaks my heart. So many of you think this quiet season means you're irrelevant. You look around and see younger people getting promoted, getting recognition, living the life you thought you deserved. And you whisper to yourself, "God has forgotten me. My time is over. I'm just waiting to die." Stop it. Stop that lie right now. Your quiet season is not irrelevance, it's insulation. God hasn't put you on the shelf because you're expired. He's placed you in the secret place because what he's preparing for you is so precious, so powerful, so life-altering that it requires this level of protection. You know what happened to Elijah when Jezebel was hunting him? He didn't fight, he didn't stand his ground. He ran to a cave and hid. And do you know what God did? He fed him. He strengthened him. He spoke to him in a still, small voice. And then, only then, did he send him out to anoint the next generation of leaders. Your cave is not your grave. It's your preparation chamber. But let me tell you something that's going to shock you. While you've been feeling numb, while you've been feeling disconnected, God has been moving heaven and earth on your behalf. The very people who wrote you off, they're about to remember your name. The very doors that slammed shut, they're about to swing wide open. The very dreams that seemed to die, they're about to resurrect with more power than you ever imagined. You thought you were benched, but heaven was holding you back until the fire was safe to walk through. Remember the 3 Hebrew boys in the fiery furnace? They didn't ask to be thrown in. They didn't volunteer for that trial. But when they came out, they didn't even smell like smoke. Why? Because God was with them in the fire. And when you come out of this season, and you will come out, You won't carry the scars of what tried to destroy you. This numbness you feel, it's temporary anesthesia for a divine surgery. God is operating on parts of your life that needed to be removed, healed, and restored. You can't feel it because if you did, the pain would be unbearable. But when you wake up from this spiritual procedure, you're going to discover strength you never knew you had. I know some of you are thinking, "But Pastor, I've been waiting for years." How much longer? Listen to me. Abraham waited 25 years for Isaac. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before his calling began. David was anointed king but spent years running from Saul. Joseph sat in prison for crimes he didn't commit. But when their time came, when God said, "Now," everything changed in a moment. One day they were forgotten. The next day they were front and center in God's plan. Your divine shutdown is almost over. Can you feel it? There's a stirring in your spirit even as I speak these words. Something deep inside you is beginning to wake up. The numbness is starting to crack. The fog is beginning to lift. The enemy thought he had you trapped in this valley of dry bones. But what he didn't realize is that God has been using this season to strip away everything that wasn't truly you, every false identity, every people-pleasing mask, every limitation you accepted about yourself. When you emerge from this divine quarantine, you won't be the same person who went in. You'll be purer, stronger, clearer about your purpose than you've ever been in your life. Drop A if you've been in this holding pattern, because I came to tell you today it's about to break. The divine shutdown is ending, and what's about to be released through your life will astound not just you, but everyone who counted you out. But there's something else you need to know. Something about the specific attack that's been targeting you. Something that will explain why this battle has felt so personal, so calculated, so designed to break you. But here's what the enemy never counted on. Here's what hell itself miscalculated when they launched their assault against you. They thought silence meant surrender. They thought your withdrawal meant defeat. They thought when you stopped fighting back, you had given up. They were dead wrong. You see, dear chosen one, what you've been experiencing isn't abandonment, it's preparation. What feels like isolation has actually been incubation. God hasn't been absent during your darkest hour. He's been setting up your greatest comeback. Let me tell you about a young man named Joseph, 17 years old, dreaming dreams that seemed too big for his reality. His own brothers, his own flesh and blood, threw him into a pit and sold him into slavery. For 13 years, Joseph disappeared from the pages of history. 13 years of silence, 13 years where it looked like his dreams had died in that Egyptian dungeon. But here's what his enemies didn't know. The silence wasn't absence, it was strategy. While Joseph sat in that prison cell, God was positioning Pharaoh's heart. While Joseph interpreted dreams for forgotten prisoners, God was orchestrating a famine that would shake nations. While Joseph's family assumed he was dead, God was preparing to make him the second most powerful man in Egypt. The very pit that was meant to bury his destiny became the launching pad for his promotion. Now let me ask you something that's going to shake you to your core. What if your pain was never about you, but about the people waiting on the other side of your obedience? What if every tear you've cried, every sleepless night you've endured, every prayer that seemed to bounce off heaven's ceiling? What if it was all preparation for the moment when God says, "Now it's time"? You think you've been forgotten, but you've been positioned. You think you've been sidelined, but you've been strategically placed. You think your dreams have died, but they've been buried like seeds, waiting for resurrection season. Look at Esther, an orphaned Jewish girl in a pagan empire. She had every reason to believe God had forgotten her people. The decree had been signed. The date had been set. In less than a year, every Jewish man, woman, and child would be slaughtered. The silence from heaven was deafening. But Mordecai spoke words that should be echoing in your spirit right now. Who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this? The very throne that seemed like a coincidence was actually a divine setup. The very position that felt accidental was actually appointed. God had been moving pieces on the chessboard for years, positioning an orphan girl to save an entire nation. The attack on the Jews wasn't random, it was strategic, and so was Esther's placement in the palace. Could it be that your greatest attack has been over your greatest assignment? Think about this. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison, 27 years where the world forgot his name, 27 years where it seemed like injustice had won. But when he walked out of that prison cell, he didn't walk out bitter. He walked out as the moral authority to heal a nation. His prison sentence became his preparation for presidency. Tyler Perry lived in his car, homeless, rejected by every studio in Hollywood. But during those years of rejection, God was developing his gift. Every no was protecting him from contracts that would have limited his vision. Every closed door was God saving him for the moment when he would own his own studio, his own empire. The silence wasn't God ignoring their cries. The silence was God preparing their platforms. Right now, while you're wondering where God is, He's positioning your breakthrough. While you're questioning His timing, He's orchestrating your vindication. While you're feeling forgotten, He's preparing your enemies to watch your promotion. But here's what breaks my heart. So many chosen ones give up right before their setup is complete. They quit praying right before the answer arrives. They stop believing right before the breakthrough manifests. They surrender their faith right before God reveals His strategy. Don't you dare be one of them. The enemy's attacks haven't been random. They've been surgical. He's been targeting your confidence because he knows your calling. He's been attacking your hope because he's terrified of your future. He's been trying to isolate you because he knows the power of your connection to heaven. But what he meant for evil, God is about to flip for good. What was designed to destroy you is about to demonstrate His power. What was intended to end your story is about to become the chapter where everything changes. The very thing that almost took you out is the very place God is about to show up and pull you out. I can feel it in my spirit right now. There's a shifting happening. The same silence that confused you is about to be broken by the sound of heaven's response. The same darkness that surrounded you is about to be shattered by the light of God's intervention. Your enemy thought he was winning, but he was actually setting up his own defeat. He thought he was writing your ending, but he was actually creating the conditions for your greatest testimony. The question that should be burning in your heart right now is this: if God has been setting up your comeback during your breakdown, what does that say about what's coming next? You thought the door would open. You were certain this was your breakthrough. You had prayed, you had believed, you had stepped out in faith, and then nothing. Silence. A wall where you expected a pathway, a rejection where you anticipated acceptance. And now you're sitting there wondering if God even heard you, if He even cares. If maybe, just maybe, you misunderstood His voice entirely. Listen to me, chosen one. What feels like God's rejection is actually God's protection. What looks like His silence is actually His strategy. And what seems like a dead end is actually a divine detour that just saved your life. You see, we live in a world that tells us every closed door is a failure, every no is a punishment, every delay is God's disappointment in us. But what if I told you that the most powerful prayer God ever answered in your life was the one He said no to? Think about it. That job you didn't get 3 years ago, that relationship that fell apart just when you thought it was getting serious, that business opportunity that slipped through your fingers at the last minute. You cried, you questioned, you wondered if God had forgotten your address. But what if He closed that door because what was behind it would have crushed you? In Proverbs 16:9, the word declares, "A man's heart plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps." Not suggests, not influences. Directs. God isn't playing games with your destiny. He's orchestrating it with precision that would make a Swiss watchmaker weep. That person who walked away from you without explanation. God saw the toxicity they would have brought into your bloodline. That promotion you didn't get? God knew the corruption in that company would have destroyed your integrity. That house you couldn't afford? God saw the foreclosure that was coming. You thought he was denying you. He was actually defending you. But here's where it gets deeper. Here's where the enemy wants to keep you blind. Every blocked door, every redirected path, every divine no wasn't just protection from what would hurt you. It was preparation for what would heal you. Isaiah 55:8 reminds us, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord." While you were focused on plan A, God was orchestrating plan abundant. While you were knocking on one door, he was building you a palace behind another. That illness that forced you to slow down, it wasn't punishment. It was a divine pause that saved you from burning out completely. That friendship that faded away, God saw how they were subtly poisoning your confidence, your faith, your very sense of worth. He didn't let them destroy what he was building in you. Every setback was actually a setup. Every rejection was actually a redirection. Every closed door was actually God saying, "Trust me, I have something better. I have something safer. I have something that won't break you." You've been angry at God for the doors he closed. But have you ever thanked him for the disasters he prevented? Have you ever praised him for the heartbreak he spared you? Have you ever worshipped him for the wrong turns he wouldn't let you take? Right now, as you're listening to this, there's a door in your life that feels permanently sealed. A dream that seems dead. A relationship that appears finished. A calling that looks impossible. And you're tempted to believe that God has given up on you. But what if that closed door is actually God's way of saying, "I'm not giving up on you. I'm giving you something greater"? What if that rejection letter was actually an acceptance letter to your real destiny? What if that broken relationship was actually God breaking you free from settling for less than his best? What if that financial setback was actually him setting you up for abundance you never could have imagined? The enemy wants you to see closed doors as evidence of God's absence. But chosen one, those closed doors are actually evidence of God's presence. They're proof that he loves you too much to let you settle. They're confirmation that he values your future too highly to let you waste it on counterfeits. In Jeremiah 29:11, God declares, "For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, to give you hope and a future." Not maybe, not possibly. He knows. Present tense, active knowledge, divine certainty. Every door he's closed has been a love letter written in divine protection. Every path he's blocked has been a mercy note signed with his blood. Every no he's given you has been a yes to something infinitely better. And here's the truth that will set you free. The very doors that broke your heart were the same doors that would have broken your spirit. The opportunities you lost were the same opportunities that would have cost you your soul. The people who left were the same people who would have led you away from your calling. God didn't block your step to stop you. He blocked it to redirect you toward the breakthrough that's actually meant for you. Right now, if you've ever thanked God for the doors that didn't open, type "thank you" for the NOs in the comments. Let your gratitude become your weapon against doubt. Let your praise become your pathway to promise. Because what's coming next will show you exactly why God had to move you away from what you wanted, to position you for what you needed. You know what separates a chosen one from everyone else walking this earth? It's not your talent, it's not your education, it's not even your faith. It's the marking. There's an invisible seal on your life that both heaven and hell can see. And right now, that marking is why you're catching hell from every direction. Listen carefully. When God marks you as chosen, he doesn't just whisper your name in heaven. He brands your spirit with purpose so powerful that it sends shockwaves through the spiritual realm. Every demon assigned to your bloodline gets the memo. Every principality over your city gets the alert. Every force of darkness gets one clear message. This one is mine. This one is dangerous. This one must be stopped. That's why your life hasn't been normal. That's why you've faced battles that would break ordinary people. That's why when you try to rest, warfare finds you. When you try to love, betrayal tracks you down. When you try to prosper, obstacles multiply like weeds after rain. But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to understand about that marking on your life. In Revelation 7:3, the angel cried out, "Hurt not the earth, neither the sea nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God in their foreheads." You've been sealed. You've been marked. And that marking isn't just identification, it's divine protection with an expiration date on every attack against you. The reason every relationship you enter gets tested. You're marked for a love so pure it threatens hell's family-destroying agenda. The reason every business venture faces supernatural resistance. You're marked for wealth that will fund God's kingdom and expose Mammon's powerlessness. The reason your prayers feel like they shake the gates of heaven. You're marked to move mountains that have blocked your bloodline for generations. You think you're struggling, but you're actually sparring with principalities that know your future. They've seen the blueprint of your destiny, and it terrifies them. While you're worried about paying next month's rent, they're panicking about the empire you're about to build. While you're crying about being alone, they're strategizing how to stop the marriage that will produce world changers. Isaiah 61:3 declares you are planted by the Lord, that he might be glorified. You weren't accidentally born into struggle. You were strategically planted in the middle of hell's territory to bloom, where demons thought nothing could grow. Your very existence is an act of spiritual warfare, that depression that hits you out of nowhere. That's not mental illness, that's spiritual opposition to the joy you're destined to carry. Those panic attacks when you're about to step into something big, that's not anxiety, that's hell's last-ditch effort to convince you you're not ready for what God has already prepared for you. But here's the revelation that changes everything. The reason the battle's been so fierce is because the blessing is that big. You're not random, you're anointed, you're not fragile. You're marked. You're not overlooked. You're being preserved. Every attack has been confirmation of your calling. Every setback has been set up for your comeback. Every tear you've cried has been collected in heaven's bottles, because your pain is precious to the one who marked you. Look at David, marked as king while still a shepherd boy. What happened next? Lions, bears, giants. His own father forgot to invite him to his own anointing ceremony. But the marking on David's life was stronger than every force that rose against him. The same God who marked David has marked you. Look at Joseph, marked for leadership while still a teenager. What happened next? Betrayal by his own brothers, false accusations, prison, forgotten by people he helped. But the marking on Joseph's life was more powerful than every pit, every prison, every persecution. The same God who marked Joseph has marked you. You're not forgotten. You're forged. You're not delayed. You're designated. You're not losing. You're launching. That marking on your life comes with divine military protection. Psalm 34:7 promises, "The angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear him and delivers them." You've got an angelic security detail you can't even see. When hell dispatches its finest demons against you, heaven dispatches its mightiest warriors for you. Right now, as you're listening to this message, something is shifting in the spiritual realm. The same marking that made you a target is about to make you unstoppable. Every weapon formed against you is about to backfire. Every curse spoken over your lineage is about to reverse. Every door that was slammed in your face is about to swing wide open. The enemy thought marking you for attack would destroy you, but God allowed the attacks to develop you. Every blow you survived made you stronger. Every betrayal you endured made you wiser. Every disappointment you faced made you hungrier for what's really yours. Your marking isn't just for this life, it's generational. Your children will inherit the favor you're fighting for. Your grandchildren will walk in the breakthrough you're bleeding for. Your lineage will never be the same because you refuse to let the marking on your life be erased by temporary turbulence. The war isn't over, but the victory is guaranteed. You're not just surviving your marking, you're about to thrive because of it. Drop if you feel this word was crafted for you. Let every demon watching know, I'm marked and I'm moving. But there's one more thing every marked chosen one must understand about the enemy's final strategy. If you're still watching this video right now, if something kept you from clicking away when that first wave of truth hit you, there's a reason. Your spirit recognized something your mind hasn't caught up to yet. You didn't stumble onto this message by accident. You were drawn here by the same force that's been hunting you in the shadows. Listen to me, chosen one. If the last message didn't scare the enemy, this one will. Because what I'm about to reveal will expose the deepest level of warfare that's been waged against your very existence. The enemy thought he had you cornered, thought he had you convinced that your pain was permanent, that your setbacks were final. But God doesn't rescue what he's done with. He only pulls out what he's about to promote. Let me speak directly to some of you right now. You who have survived suicide attempts when death whispered your name and convinced you that nobody would miss you. You who have walked through the valley of grief so deep that breathing felt like betrayal to those you lost. You who have battled illness that doctors said would win, who have endured betrayal from people who were supposed to protect your heart. You who have fought mental health battles in silence, wrestling with thoughts that felt too dark to speak out loud. You're still here. You're still breathing. You're still fighting. And that's not weakness, that's warfare. You're not broken for surviving. You're a sign that the grave has no authority over destiny. Do you understand what this means? Every time you chose to stay when leaving felt easier. Every time you got up when staying down felt safer. Every time you fought back when surrender felt logical, you were defying hell itself. You became living proof that God's plans cannot be cancelled by human pain. But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to realize. Your survival wasn't random. Your endurance wasn't accidental. Every tear you cried in secret, every prayer you whispered through gritted teeth, every moment you chose hope, when hope seemed foolish, God was building something inside you. Something the kingdom of darkness fears more than anything else. Unbreakable faith forged in fire. The Bible tells us in Romans 8:28, all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose. Not some things, not the easy things, all things. Even the things that nearly destroyed you, even the nights you cried so quietly that no one would worry about you, even the mornings you woke up disappointed that you woke up at all. God has been using your pain as a weapon against the very forces that tried to use it to destroy you. Every scar you carry is evidence of a battle the enemy lost. Every day you survived is another day his plan failed. Every breath you take is a testimony that his kingdom has no power over your calling. But why are you under such intense attack? Why has life felt like one devastating blow after another? Because hell knows something about your future that you're just beginning to understand. They don't waste their best weapons on ordinary people. They don't deploy their most sophisticated strategies against those who pose no threat. You're under attack because you're about to break through. You're being opposed because you're about to be promoted. You're facing resistance because you're approaching your purpose. The intensity of the warfare is directly proportional to the magnitude of what God is preparing to release through your life. Think about it. When have you felt the most attacked? Right before your breakthrough. When have the obstacles seemed the highest? Right before your elevation. When has the enemy fought the hardest? Right before his defeat became inevitable. David faced Goliath right before he became king. Moses faced Pharaoh right before he led Israel to freedom. Jesus faced the cross right before he conquered death itself. Your Goliath, your Pharaoh, your cross, they're not evidence that God has abandoned you. They're evidence that your promotion is so close that hell is panicking. But here's what makes this different from every other spiritual battle you've faced. This time, you're not fighting alone. This time, you're not relying on your own strength. This time, God himself is stepping into the arena on your behalf. He's not just watching your fight, he's taking over your fight. In Isaiah 54:17, God declares, no weapon that is formed against thee shall prosper. Not some weapons, not most weapons, no weapon. Every strategy, every scheme, every setup that has been orchestrated against your destiny, it's already been defeated. Not will be defeated, has been defeated. past tense, finished, done. The enemy has been playing a game where the outcome was already determined before he made his first move. Your victory isn't something you have to achieve, it's something you have to receive. Your breakthrough isn't something you have to earn, it's something you have to accept. If you've ever had to cry quietly so no one would worry, if you've ever smiled in public while dying in private, if you've ever carried burdens so heavy that you wondered how your shoulders haven't shattered, this word is for you. Stay until the end. What God's about to reveal needs a witness. Because the warfare you've been experiencing isn't the end of your story. It's the dramatic climax right before your victory. And what comes next will prove that every battle you've fought, every tear you've shed, every prayer you've prayed has been building toward this moment of divine intervention. The question isn't whether God will show up. The question is, are you ready to witness what happens when heaven invades your hell? Dear chosen one, let me ask you something that's going to cut deep. When they walked away from you, when they left you broken, discarded, forgotten in that dark place, did you think it was the end? Did you believe their whispers that you were finished, washed up, yesterday's news? Because here's what nobody told you about that crushing season. Here's the truth that will shatter every lie you've believed about your lowest moment. They thought they buried you, but you weren't a corpse. You were a seed. Every single tear you cried in isolation, every night you questioned your worth, every moment you felt like God had forgotten your name, that wasn't your funeral, that was your planting. The very people who thought they were putting you 6 feet under were actually positioning you for the most explosive resurrection of your life. You see, the enemy is brilliant at deception, but he's terrible at agriculture. He doesn't understand the difference between burial and planting. He thinks when he covers you with dirt, shame, and rejection, he's eliminated the threat. But what he's actually done is created the perfect conditions for supernatural growth. Jesus knew this principle better than anyone. In John 12:24, he said, "Unless a grain of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains only a single seed. But if it dies, it produces many seeds." Your breaking wasn't your breaking. It was your becoming. Look at Joseph. His own brothers threw him in a pit, sold him into slavery, and walked away thinking they'd solved their problem. They buried his dreams. They buried his favor. They buried his future. But 20 years later, that same boy they left for dead was standing in Pharaoh's palace, holding the keys to Egypt's survival. What they meant for evil, God used to position Joseph as the savior of nations. David spent years hiding in caves, running from King Saul, feeling like a fugitive in his own promised land. The anointing was on his head, but he was living underground, buried, hidden, forgotten by everyone except God. But in those caves, God was forging a warrior king. In that darkness, David was writing psalms that would comfort millions for thousands of years. The cave wasn't his prison, it was his preparation chamber. Elijah, after his greatest victory on Mount Carmel, found himself under a broom tree, so broken he asked God to take his life. Buried under depression, buried under exhaustion, buried under the weight of ministry that nobody seemed to appreciate. But God didn't come to bury Elijah deeper. He came to feed him, restore him, and send him back out with double the anointing. And Jesus, Jesus, they thought they'd finally silenced the voice that was disrupting their religious system. They buried him in a borrowed tomb, sealed it with a stone, posted guards, and walked away satisfied. "That's the end of that troublemaker," they whispered. But Sunday morning shattered their satisfaction. Death couldn't hold what was planted for resurrection. Here's what I need you to understand with every fiber of your being. Every chosen one gets planted in obscurity before being raised in glory. Every single one. If you haven't been buried yet, get ready. If you're in the ground right now, get excited, because what's coming next is going to blow your mind. The isolation you've experienced wasn't rejection, it was incubation. The doors that slammed shut weren't barriers, they were boundaries protecting what God was growing in secret. The people who walked away from you weren't judges, they were gardeners, unknowingly creating space for your roots to spread deeper than they ever could have in the shallow soil of their approval. But here's where it gets intense. Right now, as I'm speaking these words, something is stirring beneath the surface of your buried life. Can you feel it? That restlessness in your spirit? That sense that something is about to break through? That's not wishful thinking, that's resurrection power. The same power that raised Jesus from the dead is activating in your dormant dreams. The same force that brought Joseph from the pit to the palace is working in your underground season. The same God who turned David's cave into a training ground for kingship is about to reveal what he's been building in your hidden place. What they walked away from is about to walk into the room with resurrection power. They're about to discover that when you bury a chosen one, you don't eliminate them, you multiply them. When you plant a seed in the ground, it doesn't stay a seed. It becomes a tree. It becomes a forest. It becomes an ecosystem that feeds, shelters, and sustains everything around it. Your comeback isn't going to be quiet. It's not going to be subtle. When God raises what was planted in secret, the whole world takes notice. Your resurrection is going to be so undeniable, so powerful, so obviously supernatural, that the very people who counted you out are going to have to testify to the goodness of God in your life. The breaking was preparation, the burying was positioning, the silence was strategy, and the resurrection that's coming is going to rewrite every narrative they tried to write about your life. So let me ask you this: are you ready to bloom where they thought they buried you? Are you ready to grow where they thought you'd rot? Are you ready to rise where they thought you'd rest? Comment, I was the seed right now, because if you know what it means to be broken, buried, and left behind, then baby, you're about to bloom in ways that will astound heaven and shake hell. But the question remains: when the breakthrough comes, when the resurrection power activates, when you rise from that place they thought was your grave, will you be ready for the assignment that comes with your new life? Dear chosen one, I need you to look me in the eye right now and answer this question honestly. Do you feel like life has passed you by? Do you wake up some mornings wondering if your best years are buried in yesterday's graveyard? You're not alone in this feeling. I know there are dreams rotting in the basement of your heart. Dreams you once held so tightly they kept you awake at night with excitement. Now they keep you awake with regret. You've buried people who were supposed to walk with you into your golden years. You've watched opportunities slip through your fingers like sand. And somewhere along the way, you started believing the cruelest lie the enemy ever whispered. It's too late for you. But what if I told you that everything you think you know about your wilderness season is wrong? What if those years you call wasted weren't wasted at all? What if the isolation wasn't abandonment? What if the silence wasn't rejection? What if God wasn't punishing you, He was preparing you? Listen carefully, because this truth will shatter every lie you've believed about your past. You weren't in the wilderness to wither, you were in the womb. Think about it. A baby in the womb experiences 9 months of darkness, confinement, and apparent inactivity. To the outside world, nothing seems to be happening, but in that hidden place, the most miraculous formation is taking place. Organs are developing, systems are connecting, a heartbeat is establishing its rhythm. Life is being perfectly crafted in complete isolation. That's exactly what God has been doing with you. Those years when you felt forgotten, God was developing your character in the darkness. Those seasons when nobody called, nobody visited, nobody seemed to care, God was forming your resilience in silence. Those moments when you cried alone and wondered if anyone heard. The Creator of the universe was listening to every sob and using each tear to water the seeds of your destiny. You see, the wilderness isn't God's rejection, it's His incubation chamber. Moses spent 40 years in the desert before he led Israel out of Egypt. 40 years, can you imagine? 40 years of feeling like a washed-up has-been, a murderer in exile, a prince turned shepherd. But God wasn't wasting Moses' time. He was preparing him for the greatest deliverance in human history. Every day in that wilderness, God was building Moses' dependence, strengthening his faith, and purging his pride. David spent years running from Saul, hiding in caves, living like a fugitive. Years when he could have been sitting on the throne God promised him. But in those caves, David wrote the Psalms that still comfort millions today. In that wilderness, he learned to worship in the darkness. God was forming a king's heart in the secret place. And you, dear one, you think your wilderness years were meaningless. You think those seasons of struggle, loss, and apparent stagnation were evidence of God's absence. No, they were evidence of his intimate involvement in your formation. But here's what breaks my heart. While God was forming you in the wilderness womb, the enemy was filling your mind with lies. He whispered that you were too old, too damaged, too late to the party. He convinced you that your dreams had expiration dates. He made you believe that because you didn't achieve certain things by certain ages, you never would. The devil is a liar. Your wilderness wasn't your ending. It was your beginning. Those years of seeming emptiness were actually years of divine fullness. While the world saw barrenness, heaven saw pregnancy. While others saw retirement, God saw recruitment. While the enemy saw defeat, the Almighty saw development. And now, at this very moment, the labor pains are starting. Can you feel it? That restlessness in your spirit, that stirring in your soul, that sudden dissatisfaction with settling for less. That's not depression, that's delivery. God is about to birth something through you that's been gestating in the hidden place. The prophet Isaiah declares it perfectly. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? Do you perceive it? Can you sense the shift? Something is springing up in your life right now, something fresh, something unprecedented, something that will make your past struggles make perfect sense. But here's the critical part. A baby can't stay in the womb forever. There comes a moment when it must emerge, when it must breathe on its own, when it must face the light. And that moment for you is now. You can't keep hiding behind your age. You can't keep using your past failures as excuses. You can't keep saying, if only I had started sooner, when God is saying start now. The wilderness was your preparation. But this is your presentation. This is your moment to show the world what God can do with someone who's been formed in the secret place, refined in the hidden chamber, and birthed in his perfect timing. Your greatest chapters aren't behind you, they're about to be written. Your most significant impact isn't in your rearview mirror, it's straight ahead. Your deepest purpose isn't buried with your past, it's pregnant with possibility. So I'm asking you directly, are you ready to stop mourning what was and start birthing what's coming? Because the enemy's attack on your mind isn't random, it's strategic. He knows what's about to emerge from your wilderness womb, and he's terrified. You know what the most devastating weapon in hell's arsenal is? It's not temptation, it's not persecution, it's amnesia, spiritual amnesia. They made you forget who you are. Look at yourself right now. Really look. You've been shuffling through life like you're apologizing for taking up space. You've been accepting scraps when you were born for a banquet. You've been whispering when you were created to roar. The enemy's greatest victory wasn't making you sin, it was making you small. They tried to name you by your wound, but heaven calls you by your war. Listen to me, chosen one. Every single setback you've endured, every rejection that crushed your spirit, every door that slammed in your face, they weren't random acts of cruelty. They were systematic attempts to erase your identity. The enemy knows something about you that you've forgotten. He knows you're dangerous. He knows you carry the DNA of the Most High God. But here's what's happening right now. In this very moment, the fog is lifting. The spiritual amnesia is breaking, and hell is terrified. You see, there's a reason you've been feeling restless lately. There's a reason you can't shake this nagging sense that you're meant for more. Your spirit is waking up from a decade-long coma, and it's remembering things that make demons tremble. In Genesis 1:27, it says, "So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God he created them. Not in the image of your failures, not in the image of your past mistakes. In his image, you carry the fingerprints of divinity, and they've been trying to convince you that you're ordinary. You've been walking around like a slave when you were marked as a ruler." Think about this for a moment. When God looks at you, he doesn't see your credit score. He doesn't see your age. He doesn't see your wrinkles or your gray hair or your tired bones. He sees a king. He sees a queen. He sees royalty that hell tried to disguise as a peasant. But why did they work so hard to make you forget? Because sleeping giants don't change the world. Amnesiacs don't reclaim kingdoms. They needed you confused about your purpose because your purpose threatens their agenda. David was a shepherd boy when God called him a king. Moses was a stuttering fugitive when God called him a deliverer. Gideon was hiding in a winepress when the angel called him a mighty warrior. God has always specialized in calling forth the identity that others tried to bury. They tried to name you by your wound, but heaven calls you by your war. Every struggle you've survived was training. Every heartbreak was strengthening. Every time you got back up when they expected you to stay down, you were proving that royal blood flows through your veins. The enemy didn't attack you because you were weak. He attacked you because you were becoming dangerous. And now, right now, something is stirring in your spirit. You're remembering fragments of who you used to be before the world told you who you couldn't become. You're feeling that old fire starting to burn again. That's not nostalgia, that's recognition. Your spirit is recognizing its true nature. Romans 8:17 declares, "Now if we are children, then we are heirs, heirs of God and co-heirs with Christ." Not future heirs, present tense heirs. You're not waiting to inherit your authority, you already have it. You've just been convinced to leave it unused. But here's the enemy's fatal mistake. He thought if he buried your identity deep enough, long enough, you'd never find it again. He underestimated the power of divine awakening. He underestimated what happens when God says, "Enough." You've been settling for survival when you were designed for dominion. You've been begging for blessings that already belong to you. You've been asking permission to walk in an authority that's been yours since the moment God breathed life into your lungs. The amnesia is breaking, and suddenly you're remembering things. You're remembering that your prayers have power. You're remembering that your words carry weight. You're remembering that when you walk into a room, the atmosphere shifts because you carry the presence of the Almighty. They tried to name you by your wound, but heaven calls you by your war. This isn't about positive thinking or self-help mantras. This is about spiritual DNA awakening. This is about remembering that you're not just a human being having a spiritual experience, you're a spiritual being temporarily housed in human flesh. And that spiritual being is connected to the throne room of heaven. Every time you felt out of place in this world, it was because you are. You don't belong here permanently. You're an ambassador from another kingdom, and that kingdom operates by different rules. That kingdom operates by faith, not fear. By authority, not anxiety, by victory, not defeat. The enemy spent years convincing you that you're powerless, but suddenly you're remembering scriptures like Philippians 4:13. "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." Not some things, all things through Christ who strengthens you. Right now, as these words penetrate your spirit, something ancient is awakening, something that predates your pain. Something that was there before your first disappointment, before your first failure, before your first heartbreak. It's your original identity asserting itself against every lie you've believed. You're not reclaiming your life, you're reclaiming your throne. Drop A in the comments if your spirit's waking up right now. Because what happens next will shake the very foundations of how you see yourself and how hell sees you. You want to know why the enemy has been relentless in his pursuit of you? Why every door seems to slam shut just as you reach for the handle? Why relationships crumble when they should flourish? Why your health breaks down when you should be thriving? It's not because of what you've done, It's because of what you're about to do. Listen carefully, chosen one. The enemy doesn't waste his time on ordinary people. He doesn't deploy his strongest weapons against those who pose no threat to his kingdom. But you carry blueprints, and hell's been trying to burn them before you even realize what's in your hands. Think about it. Why would a cosmic force of darkness expend so much energy trying to destroy someone who's just getting by? Why would principalities and powers wage war against someone who's just another face in the crowd? The answer is staggering, because you're not just another face. You never were. You carry the DNA of eternity. You possess gifts that terrify the underworld. That wisdom you've gained through decades of living, that's not just experience, that's prophetic insight that can guide an entire generation. That nurturing heart that's been broken and mended 1,000 times. That's not just compassion, that's healing power that can restore families, communities, entire bloodlines. The enemy saw your future before you did. He saw the impact you're destined to make. He saw the lives you're going to change, the prayers you're going to answer, the darkness you're going to dispel. And in his terror, he launched a preemptive strike. Every attack you've endured was an assassination attempt on your destiny. Every betrayal was meant to convince you that you don't matter. Every financial struggle was designed to make you believe you're powerless. Every health crisis was intended to steal your voice before you learned how to use it. But here's what hell never counted on: you survived. You're still here. You're still breathing. You're still believing. Romans 8:18 tells us, "For I reckon that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us." Do you understand what Paul is saying? Your suffering wasn't random, it was preparatory. Every tear was an investment in your authority. Every trial was a down payment on your anointing. You think you're getting older, but God sees you getting stronger. You think you're running out of time, but heaven knows you're just entering your prime. The enemy convinced you that your best years are behind you, but the truth is your most powerful years are straight ahead. That discernment you've developed, that's not paranoia, that's a prophetic gift that can expose deception and protect the innocent. That ability to see through people's masks, that's not cynicism, that's spiritual insight that can save lives. That intuition that whispers warnings in your spirit, that's not anxiety, that's the voice of the Holy Spirit using you as his mouthpiece. The reason you felt so attacked is because you're about to become unstoppable. The reason the enemy has thrown everything at you is because he knows what's coming. Your breakthrough isn't just personal, it's generational. Your victory isn't just individual, it's revolutionary. You've been wondering why you've had to endure what should have destroyed you, why you've survived what has killed others, why you've walked through valleys that have swallowed entire armies. Here's why: because you were carrying something too sacred to die. You think those sleepless nights were just stress, but God was downloading strategy into your spirit. You think those moments of isolation were just loneliness, but heaven was protecting the treasure inside you while it matured. You think those seasons of struggle were just bad luck, but the Almighty was forging you into a weapon that hell cannot withstand. The enemy targeted your mind because he knew it would house revelation. He attacked your relationships because he knew you were destined for divine connections. He went after your finances because he knew you were meant to fund kingdom purposes. He assaulted your health because he knew your body was meant to carry resurrection power. But every attack has only made you more dangerous to his kingdom. Every wound has become a well of wisdom. Every scar has become a source of strength. Every setback has become a setup for an even greater comeback. If you've ever had to endure what should have killed you, that's the proof that you were carrying something too sacred to die. The blueprints are still in your hands, chosen one. Hell couldn't burn them. Time couldn't fade them. Trauma couldn't destroy them. And now, in this hour, God is about to reveal what's been hidden in your spirit all along. The question isn't whether you're under attack. The question is, are you ready to discover why you're such a threat? Because what I'm about to reveal next will show you exactly how God plans to turn your greatest pain into your most powerful weapon. Chosen one, as we come to the end of this divine encounter, I need you to remember 3 unchangeable truths. First, the attacks you've endured were not punishments, they were proof of your purpose. Second, every battle you've survived has equipped you with weapons for the war ahead. And third, the enemy's desperation to stop you is evidence that your breakthrough is closer than you think. You are not walking this path alone. Even in your darkest hour, when the silence felt deafening and the isolation overwhelming, the God of all creation was orchestrating your rescue. He has been moving pieces on the chessboard of your destiny, positioning you for victory even when defeat seemed certain. The same hands that parted the Red Sea are parting the obstacles in your path right now. And beyond the throne room of heaven, there's a community of believers, your spiritual family, ready to stand with you in prayer, to lift you up when you're weary, and to remind you of who you are when the world tries to convince you otherwise. You are not forgotten. You are not forsaken. You are not fighting alone. But I need to ask you something that will echo in your heart long after this video ends. What if everything you've been through, every tear, every trauma, every test was God's way of preparing you for the greatest chapter of your life? What if your pain was not your punishment, but your promotion in disguise? Now, before you leave this sacred space, I want to pray over you with the authority of heaven and the tenderness of a father's heart. Father God, I come before your throne on behalf of every chosen one listening to these words. I ask that you place your hand of protection over their life right now. Lord, heal the wounds that others cannot see. Restore the dreams that have been deferred. Strengthen the faith that has been tested beyond measure. God, I pray that you would open doors that no man can shut. Release the resources they need for their next season. Send divine connections that will accelerate their purpose. Break every chain of depression, anxiety, and despair. Let your peace that surpasses all understanding guard their hearts and minds. Father, breathe new life into their weary souls. Give them the courage to trust your plan, even when they cannot see the end of the road. Remind them daily that they are fearfully and wonderfully made, chosen before the foundation of the world for such a time as this. And Lord, let this message be a turning point in their lives. From this day forward, let them walk in the confidence of who you've called them to be. In Jesus' mighty name I pray. Amen. Your story is not over, beloved. This is not your ending, it's your beginning. I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me what spoke to your heart today. Share a word of encouragement for someone else who might be watching. Ask for prayer if you need it. This community is here for you, and your testimony might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to keep going. If this message stirred something in your spirit, please share it with someone who needs to know they're not alone in their battle. Your obedience to share might save a life, restore a family, or redirect a destiny. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Your heart, your time, your attention, it all matters more than you know. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. We're building more than a community here. We're building a spiritual family that stands together in faith. Remember, chosen one, your greatest days are not behind you, they're ahead of you. And the God who brought you this far will carry you the rest of the way. Until next time, keep fighting the good fight. Keep believing. Keep trusting. Your breakthrough is coming.